Welcome back to Donington Park and the BRDC British Formula 3 Championship here in the stunning autumn sunshine. The Donington Park Grand Prix circuit, has been producing some great racing this weekend in the British Formula 3 Championship, and race 3 of the weekend should be no different at all. We've had two different winners from our first two races. Can we get a third in this one? Well, the start will be all important. We'll hopefully be able to take a look at the grid in a moment or two. We're getting notified that there may be a delayed start to this race, so I'm not sure if someone has maybe gone missing on the green flag lap, but the bulk of the field are making their way around the Melbourne hairpin, and it's Caelan Frederick that had the race win yesterday, and he is back on pole position again now in race number 3. He has Cushmaney alongside him, and Ulista Power and Sassacorn Charmancol will be right behind him on row number 2. Then it's Nazim Asman and Bart Horston on row 3. Rhys Ushijima and Ben Pedersen on row 4, ahead of Kian Jewis and Louis Foster rounding out the top 10. Then it's Ollie Clark and Frank Bird, Manaf Hijawi and Josh Skelton. Piers Pryor, Roberto Farrier making his debut in the championship. Josh Mason and Alex Fours rounding out the field. And that, I'm afraid, is Manaf Hijawi, who was one of the stars of race number 2 a little bit earlier on, got himself a podium, his first ever podium in the championship in race 2, but sadly he's off the road at the top of the Craner curves, and this is the reason for the delayed start. So they are going to have another green flag lap presumably in a moment or two. There's the notification from race control that the start has been delayed, which gives me a bit of time to talk about what's been going on so far this weekend. As I said, we've had 2 races already, the first of which was yesterday, won by Caelan Frederick, with Ulista Powell second and Cushmaney, the championship leader, in 3rd position. The big story there really was that there was some contact in the early stages between Kian Jewis and Louis Foster, and Jewis ended up with damaged front left suspension. Frank Bird went off the road as well to avoid them. Frank also making his first appearance of the season this weekend, and that was significant because Kian Jewis was 3rd in the championship coming into the weekend, 2nd in fact coming into the weekend, 3rd place now, and Louis Foster also was delayed in that, and he was up there 4th in the championship. So a few of our championship contenders running into difficulty, as we see the grid again now going through at the bottom of your screen. Caelan Frederick on pole position, and alongside him Cushmaney, then Ulista Powell and Sassacorn Charmancol, with Nazim Asman and Bart Horston on row number 3, the Carlin driver ahead of the Lannon driver. Then it is Rhys Ushijima and Benjamin Pedersen on the 4th row of the grid, ahead of Kian Jewis and Louis Foster making up row number 5, those two that were involved in that collision yesterday. Ollie Clark and Frank Bird are on row number 6 of the grid, ahead of Manaf Hijawi and Josh Skelton on the 7th row. Then it's Piers Pryor with Roberto Farrier on the 8th row. Josh Mason and Alex Fours will round out the 18-car grid. Back to what happened earlier on today, then we had our reversed grid race, which of course was an opportunity for those who had had a few problems earlier on in the weekend to maybe bounce back, and bounce back is exactly what Louis Foster did, because he finished 11th in race 1. That put him towards the front of the grid, 6th on the grid for race 2, but he had a great start, went round the outside, he was 3rd into the first corner, and he led the race by the end of the opening lap, which in a category renowned for being difficult to overtake in was especially impressive. Josh Mason came home 2nd to get his first podium of the year, and Manaf Hijawi, as I said, his first ever BRDC British Formula 3 podium with 3rd place, and with that he became the 14th different podium finisher of the year so far. It's an incredible run that we're on over the last few years, really. We seem to get well into double figures as far as race winners and podium finishers are concerned, and it means that actually only about 5 drivers have not had a podium this year, and that's 5 drivers including some who are not racing this weekend. So that second race, definitely there were a few feel-good stories to come out of it. But now we move into race 3, and it's back to a more traditional grid, the grid based on fastest laps from the first race yesterday. So the second fastest laps of qualifying, So Caelan Frederick on pole, Cushmaney in 2nd place, as I said. So new race distance will be over 11 laps, maximum 18 minutes, but we should get to the 11 laps quite comfortably before the 18 minutes. And they've just knocked the lap off, because we will end up with a second green flag lap here. As a result of the delayed start. And I can hear the engines being fired back up again underneath me. So really fascinating championship battle list that we've got on our hands between Caelan Frederick and Cush Maney. After the 2 races we've had so far this weekend, the points now see Cush Maney on 261. He's 40 points ahead of Caelan Frederick, which is actually more than he had in hand coming into this weekend, and he did all of that in race 2 because he beat Caelan Frederick in race 2, even though Caelan was ahead of him in the first race. But more to the point, he also gained more positions than Caelan did in race number 2, and in the reversed grid races you gain 1 point for every position that you gain based on where you started. So Cush Maney was able to actually extend his championship lead after race 2 despite finishing quite a long way down the order. And Cush, the high-tech Grand Prix driver whose brother Arjun is a pretty handy racer as well, Arjun Maney, who raced as high as FIA Formula 2, was podium finisher on the F1 support card in recent years. He's now pursuing a career in GT and sports car racing, I believe. Cush Maney, his older brother, I believe, although I don't think there's that much difference between them. They are both very, very rapid racers, both very popular over in India, their home country. They have a real following over there. Not that many Indian racing drivers making it to the very top, I suppose, so those that do have the talent to do so are really well supported back at home. So the green flag lap back underway then, this second attempt to get this now slightly shortened race underway, round 14 of the championship. We're into the second half of the year now as well. It's a 24 race season. At Snetterton next time we will have 4 races, which is the last time that we will have our 4 race format, to try and make up for a couple of rounds that have been missed as a result of the delayed start to the year. Then we come back to Donington Park, not at a British GT meeting, but that will be on the national circuit for 3 races. And then we are, of course, at Silverstone, back on the GT package again at the end of the year for the final 3 rounds on the Grand Prix circuit at the home of British Motor Racing. Well, when we get there, will it be Caelan Frederick who is crowned the champion, I wonder, or can somebody else like Cush Maney form maybe a little bit of an upset? Because I don't think many people really expected, with the greatest respect, Cush Maney to be doing quite as well as he is, especially when, if you cast your mind back to Alton Park at the start of the year, Cush Maney, the very first qualifying session of the year, he was 14th and finished 14th in the first race, but then he won the reverse grid race, he was second in the reverse grid race, and he was also second in race number 4, which for which the grid was based upon fastest laps from previous races. So ever since then he's been on the pace, but the start of the season definitely didn't feel like a championship campaign at Alton Park for Cush Maney. It very much has turned into one though, because he is going to line up on the outside of row 1 here as the championship leader by 40 points over the man alongside him. Caelan Frederick really must beat the high-tech Grand Prix driver in this one to try and close the gap. 11 laps of racing, round number 14 of the BRDC British Formula 3 Championship is underway at Donington Park, and Caelan Frederick makes an excellent getaway from pole position. Cush Maney should hang on to second place, and Sasagorn Chimengold diving up the inside of Ulysse De Pauw into Redgate Corner. They almost make contact. Thankfully they avoided, and De Pauw will hang on to third place. Nazim Asman going around the outside of Reese Ushijima there for 5th position, I think that was. So Ushijima's had a good start. He started on the 4th row of the grid, but they are all safely through Redgate Corner. Asman fends off the high-tech car, and Cush Maney goes for the race lead down in the old hairpin. Cush Maney is going for it. He is attacking Caelan Frederick, the top 2 drivers in the championship. Cush Maney is alongside the Carlin driver. He's got the inside line for the right-hander at McLean's, and he goes through. Fantastic racing between the 2 of them, and Cush Maney has got the early advantage. Cian Dewis is off the road with a damaged front wing, I think, there in the background. The front wing is still there, but he's definitely been delayed in all of that. But it is Cush Maney that has the advantage from Caelan Frederick at the front of the field. Caelan Frederick will be kicking himself for that. He left the door open into the old hairpin, and that was the only invitation that Cush needed. Bouncing over the curbs, out wide goes Ushijima, dicing away with Cian Dewis through the chicane there. At the back of the field is Alex Force, the number 7 car, and Frederick's lost second place now. Ulysse De Pauw has got himself ahead of Caelan Frederick, who must have made a mistake going through the chicane, and has lost now second position, which means Cush Maney is pulling away into a pretty handsome lead already. Frederick is fighting back against De Pauw into the final corner, tries to go right round the outside, that won't work. Armfuls of opposite lot, they almost make contact, rattle over the curb coming out of the corner, and Ulysse Ulista Power then in second place is under pressure still because Frederick has the slipstream down the pit straight, forces the 55 car to defend into Redgate corner. Frederick takes the wide line in to try and get the switch back on the exit of the corner if he can. Bart Horston and Benjamin Pedersen there banging wheels out of Redgate, and one of the Chris Dittman cars is in the gravel trap. I suspect that was Josh Skelton. Ollie Clark has not come through at the end of the opening lap. I know not why. And of course, Manafi Jawi didn't start the race, but I don't know what's happened to the second of the hill speed cars. We're hearing he might have had a puncture on the first lap of the race. His teammate, though, Sasakor Chimancol, is now attacking for third place as he tries to get past Caelan Frederick into McLean's corner. Frederick, far from attacking to power to try and reclaim second, is now having to really defend his third place. There goes Piers Pryor on the outside, trying to get past the 34 machine. And yes, left rear puncture for Oliver Clark, who sadly is not going to score that many points from this one either, it would seem. Well, take a deep breath, everyone. That was a dramatic opening lap and a half. It's not over yet either. Josh Mason there with a new livery on that car this year. There's a switch of tyres in front of them, but I think everyone came out the other side of the chicane. Nazim Azman dives up the inside and takes a place away from Sasakor Chimancol. That's fourth place now for the Carlin driver. He hasn't quite got it done yet. He's on the inside line, though, for the final corner at Goddard's. Can he make the move stick? Chimancol's trying to fight back on the outside, but no, Azman will put the number 17 car through. So Carlin running third and fourth now in this race, and that rather lets Azman's teammate, Caelan Frederick, off the hook now, doesn't it? Because Caelan's pulled out a good few car lengths on this pair. Kian Jewis in the next car, the 87 car, with Rhys Ushijima behind him, and that is Ollie Clark out of the pit lane with a fresh left rear tyre. That was quick work from the team. And Piers Pryor, I'm afraid, has had a spin at the final corner as Chimancol comes back at Nazim Azman at the old head, and that was brave. It didn't work though, and so they're both slow off the corner. Kian Jewis sees a chance to draw alongside. This is fantastic racing here from the BRDC British Formula 3 Championship. Chimancol clearly feels that he's quick enough to get back ahead of Nazim Azman here, or at least that he doesn't want to let Azman get away, but in doing so he risks losing a place to Jewis, who again thought about going up the inside there through Coppice corner. Next behind them are Ushijima and Bart Horston, with Benjamin Pedersen and Louis Foster not far back. Foster, the black car with the blue wings, really could do with gaining some spots here. Hopping over the curbs. Well, Foster, there he is, look, right over that sausage curb through the inside of the right-hand part of the chicane. Attack being made there against Rhys Ushijima. And that is Bart Horston trying to find a way past him, the Australian driver. But again, took a tight line into the hairpin, which means he's slow off the corner. So Benjamin Pedersen carries more speed up the hill and draws alongside. He's on the outside line into the final corner. Ushijima, Japanese driver, running for high-tech teammate to Kushmani, who is 2.3 seconds ahead of Ulista Power at the front of the field. Really stellar effort this has been from the points leader. Just seeing Benjamin Pedersen there racing with Bart Horston. I've been handed a sheet which has some of the tyre information for this race. Now, Maney and Frederick are both on 2 fresh tyres, so their tyre situation is no different from each other. And Ulista Power also has 2 new tyres, so that's there's no tyre edge there for Maney. That's just a genuine advantage that he seems to have in pace. So Kushmani leads the way. Ulista Power second, Caelan Frederick third, Nazim Azman fourth, Sasakor Chimancol in fifth. Piers Pryor is in the pit lane with damage. That's a shame. It had been a promising weekend, but he managed to drag a promising weekend out of a disappointing qualifying effort yesterday, having he qualified 16th for race 1 and I think 15th for this one. In race 1 yesterday he was able to move up quite nicely actually from 16th to 10th and managed to get himself a 7th place finish in race 2. But Piers Pryor, very promising young driver, but maybe qualifying is something that he will be wanting to improve on in the future. The trouble with this category is that it isn't easy to overtake, so if you start qualifying really badly, that can really derail your weekend and championship hopes. Lots of the pit lane exit being used by Kushmani there into the first corner as he tried to take the widest line possible into the turn and into the pit lane. In the background look went I think it was Josh Skelton. Yeah, it was. Josh Skelton's in now as the battle is on there between Roberto Faria and Josh Mason. So there is the 43 car in. His teammate for this weekend, Roberto Faria, is still continuing in 14th place. Of course, Chris Dickman brought in Ayrton Simmons, who made a welcome return to the championship at Brands Hatch last time. He won 2 races on his return to the series, but that was always, I think, a one-off for Ayrton, who's been racing over in European F3 competition this year to reasonable success, the British driver. So things settling down a little bit now. Then you've got this big queue of cars for 4th place, though, haven't you? Asman, Chimengold, Jewis, Ushijima, Horston, Pedersen, Foster, even Frank Bird actually is part of this gaggle as well. So lots of good racing going on further down the field. Replay of the start here. It was a great start, really, from the pole sitter. And Caelan Frederick did get the lead into turn 1. That's called Chimengold. 2 wheels on the grass there, but just couldn't quite force the issue enough and make that move work. Although Frederick had the lead into turn 1, by the time they got to the bottom of the hill, Kushmani had already decided he was going to attack. He was quicker through the middle part of the cradles and just launched to the inside at the old hairpin. They did well to avoid contact. Frederick wouldn't necessarily have seen that one coming. And then it still took him all the way up until McLean's in the end to complete the manoeuvre. So Kushmani then has the lead of the race now by 2.5 seconds near enough over Ulysses Power in 2nd place, Caelan Frederick in 3rd. Change further back, Roberto Farrier has just got up a place ahead of Josh Mason, and there was someone running wide there coming out of the old hairpin. Was that Louis Foster? It might have been. I think it was the car behind Benjamin Pedersen, so it would have been Foster that ran wide. So there is Josh Skelton. So Skelton has come out of the pit lane after whatever his problem was, in between the race leaders. So the car that is immediately behind Kushmani is not actually running 2nd in the race. There you can see the red and yellow Chris Dickman Racing colours. Familiar colours now for that team. Real battle is this one for 4th, because Saskia Chimengold, who has had probably his strongest weekend of the year, maybe ever, in the championship this weekend at Donington Park. Chimengold was 9th yesterday and 11th today, but his pace has been a lot more impressive than that, to be fair. His qualifying efforts have been really good. 4th place on the grid for this race, of course, based on his 2nd fastest times from qualifying. And he is every bit the match, it would seem, for Nazim Asman right now in front of him. There's Bart Horston, the number 50 car. And Bart, the Aussie, is currently 10th place in the points. He lost a bit of ground in the previous race, though, after only scoring 3 points from the reverse grid encounter. So up the hill goes Kian Jewis then on the 7th lap of the race. New fastest lap set by Kushmani last time, by the way, 1:25.472. The fastest race lap of the weekend so far was a 25.0 set by Reese Ushijima in the previous race. And the fastest lap from race 1 was a 25.2. As we see a replay, this will be the car that was running wide. It was, oh well, okay, it was Louis Foster, but it was also Benjamin Pedersen. That's so often the case. When one car runs wide, as Pedersen did, the car behind sometimes tends to follow, because you're using the car in front as a reference. So if they brake at a certain point, turn in at a certain point, and take a certain line, you tend to get drawn into running the same line as them. So they both ran wide, but it was a pretty spectacular moment for Pedersen there. He got quite a lot of air under the front end of the car. So Kushmani then, the high-tech GP driver, now has a 2.9 second cushion, setting another impressive lap time that time around, only a 10th or so off his previous best. His teammate there, Ushijima, harassing Kian Jewis. And then, speaking of harassment, look at this, running wide out of the final corner goes Alex Fours as he tries to get himself ahead of Josh Mason. And that was a change on that lap, actually, because Roberto Farrier, the number 7, and Josh Mason, the number 21, both got themselves ahead of the Chris Dickman car on the previous lap. But Alex Fours is fighting back again now, pulls alongside Josh Mason, and in the end makes that look rather easy. I think Mason might have a problem, has he? Yeah, there's a puff of smoke from the back of the car. And he ran wide over the curb coming out of Redgate, but that shouldn't have damaged the car as such. But it's definitely not up to speed, is it? That number 21 car, well, maybe it is now, but I'm sure I saw a bit of smoke coming out of the back of it. It could have just bottomed out, I suppose, in the compression through the craners, but yeah, Josh Mason has had a bit of a trying year, really. It started with a crash at Alton Park and then another non-finish here at Donington in the third and final race in August. and is yet to get a top 5 finish this year. He's had a 9th and a 10th as his 2 best results. Oh, until, of course, the second race earlier on where he did get that first podium, but that was as a result, obviously, of the reversed grid. Still worth the same, worth a trophy still, and a second place. You still get to say you were a podium finisher in British F3, which Josh has been in the past, actually, from reverse grid races. Now, Caleb Frederick's all of a sudden woken up here and caught up to Ulysse de Pauw, and in fact he's just set the fastest lap, 1:25.419. He was a full 10th and a half quicker than the race leader Kush Maney that time. So Caleb Frederick, second place in the points. He really does not need to be losing too many points here to Maney out in front. You score 35 points for a win, 29 for second and 24 for third. So as it stands, Caleb Frederick, who comes into the race 40 points behind Maney, would be 51 behind him going to Snetterton next time. Of course, if he can get past Ulysse de Pauw, he does some of that damage, but he's still going to drop a full 6 points to the leader. So there doesn't seem to be much chance of him catching Maney at this stage. Rattling over the curbs there, that's really rattles the fillings in your teeth, that going over those curbs into the chicane. A very rough ride in these low-down single-seaters, the Tatius chassis Cosworth engined Formula 3 cars. Been used in this category now in the UK for a while. Very, very popular car, very user-friendly it seems. Drivers seem to be able to get to grips with it pretty quickly after moving from something like Formula 4 or similar competition. So the leader goes through, and this time Caleb Frederick is not as quick as Ulysse de Pauw or Kush Maney in front of him. Asman and Charmancol getting away from Kian Jewis, Rhys Ushijima and Bart Horston. So 6th, 7th and 8th kind of becoming their own separate battle now. Benjamin Pedersen and Frank Bird still rounding out the top 10. Josh Mason, by the way, is back ahead of Alex Forbes now. So that continues to change, doesn't it? Because Forbes got past him at the start of the previous lap, and now he is back down into 14th place. On the 10th lap, by the way, of 11 in this shortened race after a delayed start because Manafi Jarvi's car stopped on the green flag lap. And Piers Pryor pulled into the pit lane at the end of lap number 2 after contact and damage at the final corner. Now, this is Kian Jewis trying to find a way ahead of the number 13 of Ushijima. So yeah, Ushijima's gone through then. Ushijima is into 6th position now. Jewis down to 7th. And Bart Horston looking to try and follow the high-tech car through. Ushijima was making some good moves in the previous race, wasn't he? And he's now made another one against championship contender Kian Jewis. Ushijima probably too far back to be realistically called a title contender at this point of the championship, but he's getting more and more top 5 and top 6 results now as the season goes on. Bart Horston, can he try one of his round the outside specials here at the final turn? He can't, but he instead tries to cut back to that late apex. Jewis gets a wheel on the dirt as well. That won't help his traction here. And so the fight for 7th place will be almost side by side again into Redgate Corner. Horston goes to the outside and then dives to the inside. That was an absolute textbook manoeuvre from Bart Horston. He sold Kian Jewis the dummy. Jewis thought the inside was covered because he thought Horston was going to go for the wide line into the corner. But Bart fought to get to the inside line and was able to go through. And now Ben Pedersen is trying to capitalise on the loss of momentum here for Jewis, who's lost 2 places in less than half a lap. And Benjamin Pedersen, who I think maybe people expected a little more of this year. He's had a couple of top 5 finishes, but no podiums yet for the American driver. And it doesn't look like he's going to get a podium here, but he could overtake Kian Jewis and score an extra couple of points before the end of the race. We are on the final lap of this race, though, so I'm not sure he's really got that many opportunities. The final couple of hairpins are chances to pass, but you've got to be quite robust, quite committed to make that move. Down into the hairpin they go. The leaders, though, already coming up towards the start-finish line, and the checkered flag will be waiting for them this time because it is this slightly shortened race because of the delayed start. It looks as though Kush Maney, the championship leader, is going to take the checkered flag. He's just flashed across the start-finish line. Kush Maney wins then round number 14 of the BRDC British Formula 3 Championship. Second place goes the way of Ulysse de Pauw, third for Caleb Frederick, 4th Nazim Asman, and 5th for Sasakon Charmancol, 6th for Rhys Ushijima, 7th Bart Horston, Kian Jewis is 8th, and Pedersen is 9th, and Frank Bird will be 10th. And here was the winning moment for Cushmaney, who comes out of the final corner and wins here at Donington Park. And that was a really great drive. He started second, he overtook Caelan Frederick on the first lap, and he'll have been even more overjoyed to realise that Ulysse de Pauw had got past Frederick by the end of that first lap as well, because Cush's big title rival therefore scored even fewer points. So the gap will go out now to about 51 points between the two in Cushmaney's favour. And yeah, he is, as we go into the final 3 events of the year, 10 races still to go. And Cushmaney could be moving into a pretty unassailable lead, but when you consider there are 35 points available for a race win in either races 1 and 3, and 20 points for a race 2 victory, it's quite easy to lose that sort of margin if you have a bad weekend. It's been a very good weekend for Cushmaney, though, this weekend at Donington Park. A 3rd place in race 1, a 10th in race 2, and a win in race number 3. Ulysse de Pauw in 2nd place and Caelan Frederick on the podium, but having started from pole and led into turn 1, he'll be disappointed with that. Asman, his teammate, is 4th, from Sasakon Charmancol in 5th. Ushijima 6th, then Horston in 7th place with Jewis, Pedersen and Bird rounding out the top 10. Good to see Frank Bird getting a top 10 on his debut in the championship. Louis Foster, a disappointed 11th place ahead of Roberto Faria. Josh Mason was 13th after a race-long dice with Faria and Alex Fors, who comes home 14th, whilst Josh Skelton is a lap down after that puncture on the opening lap. Ollie Clark also Clark had the early puncture, didn't he? I don't know why Skelton came into the pit lane, but they both end up finishing a lap down, with Piers Pryor out on the 2nd lap of the race and recording, sadly, another non-finish for Piers. That will be his 2nd non-finish. He also was disqualified from a race at Brands Hatch earlier in the year. So that was race number 3 of the weekend for the BRDC British Formula 3 Championship, a race that saw a real battle between the 2 championship contenders right from the word go. It was Caelan Frederick on pole position, Nazim Asman, the points leader, was 2nd, and that was the order they ran into turn 1, while Sasakon Charmancol tried to get up the inside of Ulysse de Pauw for 3rd, but couldn't quite make it stick. Rhys Ushijima had a good start in the 2nd high-tech car. He was dicing for a top 5 place, but the move of the race was made down into the old hairpin halfway around the opening lap. A brilliant overtake by Cushmaney, a move that he arguably didn't need to do to take the risk with, but he felt that he was able to do it, and a couple of corners later he completed the pass into McLean's corner to get himself ahead of his big championship rival. Then into the middle part of the race, the battling was still going on, but with Nazim Asman going past Sasakon Charmancol for 4th, Caelan Frederick, his teammate, having already lost 2nd place to Ulysse de Pauw. There was quite a scary moment for Benjamin Pedersen, who bounced his way over the grass out of the old hairpin and was followed by Louis Foster. Ushijima made a good move up the inside of Cian Jewis into Coppice corner, and Cian Jewis would then later end up under ball pressure from the cars behind as well. It was Cushmaney, though, who, having taken his first victory of the season at Brands Hatch last time, made it a 2nd win here at Donington to extend his championship lead, as we now head to the next rounds at Snetterton. We hope to see you there in a few weeks' time.